Hi everyone, welcome to the latest episode. Thanks for joining us. Today we've got Paul Hall with us. He played for Chesterfield between 2005 and 2007, so just 2 seasons with us, but was pretty much an ever-present for both of those seasons. Top goal scorer in his first season and part of the team that did so well in the Carling Cup in 2006. Started his career down in Torquay and then had a great spell at Portsmouth, which led to him going to the World Cup in '98 with Jamaica. Had some great stories of that era, really fond memories of his time at Chesterfield too, so it was great to have a chat to him. He's now the head coach of the Under 23s at QPR and looking at going into management next up. So he had some really good thoughts on the game, and it's great to see that he's doing so well since he left Chesterfield all those years ago. So yeah, please do subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. We're also on Twitter at Spire Legends and Facebook if you just search Legends of the Spire. So it'd be great to hear from you. Plenty more episodes to come, but in the meantime, here is Paul Hall. Yeah, so thanks for coming on. We should start.
No,
I always like to start at the beginning, really.
Okay.
In terms of how you ended up as in a career in football in the first place, because I'm guessing the time you started, it was probably more YTS than kind of going through a structured youth system. But you were born up in Manchester, weren't you? But then started at Torquay. Right. So I'm just wondering how that all happened, how you ended up at Torquay.
Well, it was the kind of I was a kid that moved around a lot as a youngster. We moved from Manchester to Birmingham, back to Manchester, back to Birmingham, and it was that kind of upgrowing. So that helped me later on in my life in changing rooms because I was able to just go into a new experience from a very, very young age.
Yeah.
And I was playing Sunday League in Birmingham, and there was a scout that was a Torquay scout who scouted Lee Sharp the previous year. And he was quite big, and he'd sold somebody to Manchester United, sold Lee Sharp to Man United. And so he just said, look, come down on trial. And I had a lot of the other clubs, West Brom, Walsall, and Birmingham City. They were all had offered me YTS contracts. But I'd gone down there, and it was the thought process of my mum that I needed to grow and go and be a man and get out of the area that I was kind of in. So when I went down there, I was a Birmingham City footballer playing in the 4th division. So I came through pretty quickly. Yeah. You know, you're training with the first team at 16 and 17, and then you're playing in the first team at that age as well. So it was really, 18 months previous, I'm at school, but then I'm playing in the 4th division, and it's a dream come true, really.
Did you ever do any other jobs or apprenticeships around that time? Because various people that ended up doing bits of plumbing or bits of training around that time.
I assure you, there's an away stand at Torquay, right, that we had to build. So we had to do concreting, we had to do carrying sand, and for the first 2 weeks, I was a builder, and that's what it was. I was scrubbing down seats with iron filings. I was painting. I was doing everything before I could even get to kick a ball. So all we were doing was doing that, and then after we'd go running for 5 miles. So I was thinking, is this what football, professional football is?
Yeah.
And then, slowly they start to introduce the football, and you start to feel the leather, as they say.
Yeah, and it's a lovely place in the world, isn't it, to go if you're starting a career in football. I imagine it's lovely being.
Yeah, I love my life down there, and I expect Aaron and Michelle do. And I thought that it's called the English Riviera for a reason. It's like you could be in France, in the southern part of France, and not see any different. It's beautiful, the most picturesque city, I think, in the country. And there's a reason why a lot of people flock down there to their holidays, and I expect it'll have a revitalized energy because of Brexit.
Yeah, and I was saying to Aaron, it's the away match that all the fans want on bank holiday. If you get Torquay on a Tuesday night, that doesn't go down well.
No, I mean, it's so far. And I mean, we used to have to, if you can imagine, we went up to Carlisle on the day. I mean, that's a trip that you have to navigate through the Midlands, through the bottleneck of the M6, the M5, M6 interchange. And you could be sat in traffic for 3 or 4 hours of that. And sometimes we'd leave 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning to get there for a 3 o'clock kickoff. So it wasn't, if I went down to Torquay, it wasn't for the glamorous side of football. It was to learn my trade and learn it in a very difficult way. But it did us good. There's some great players that have come from that team.
Yeah, and then you went, and I want to talk about your years at Portsmouth, because that's where you really got your name, I suppose. You were there from, 93 to 98, and then obviously that ended up with World Cup at the end of it.
Yeah, so, I mean, Portsmouth was what a football club. Honestly, it was. The fans are just on a next level. They're just, you could be 4-1 down at home and they're still going, and they really drive you over the line. Anybody that goes there with a team, they better expect to be playing against 12 men, because their crowd is really, I know it's a cliche, but their crowd really is a 12th man. And they really do, when they're at home, you feel the energy of the crowd, and it's a one city club, and they really get after you and really make sure that you're not slacking, which is brilliant. And away teams that come, they make them feel hostile, and it is a real one city club, and they deserve the biggest club because they are a massive club.
Yeah, and it's teams like that have really suffered with not having fans in the stadium, isn't it? When your atmosphere is a 12th man, you really notice when you can't have a crowd in.
Of course, and again, they are fantastically supported team. I mean, I remember them being in League Two with a full house, full crowd. I went down there and watched a couple of games and saw them get promotion. And like I say, they've got such a rivalry with Southampton, and they really protect their football team. They really do protect them with all that they've got, and support them as well. And that's a club, or a city, that deserves a club in the Premier League.
And who were your kind of best mates, or the players that you really liked playing with in your time at Portsmouth?
Oh my word, I was so lucky, because I'd left Torquay, which was probably 1,500 people, 3,000 at max, to going in front of 25,000 and playing in the playoffs for the Premier League. So I was in the changing rooms with internationals, Paul Walsh, Mark Chamberlain, who's Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain's dad, Alan McLaughlin. All these guys are internationals. Guy Whittingham, who went on to break records for goal scoring, Alan Knight, and so much players in there. Alan Ball, Jim Smith, all these guys who had played and made such an impact on football, when that I was now learning from. And it was such a great part of my learning experience to spend 6 years at a football club that was full of internationals and full of fruit, and I could only benefit from that.
Yeah, and then yeah, like I said, at the end of your spell at Portsmouth is when you had the World Cup in '98, and you got to play in it. And I was having a look at the matches that you played in just before we started talking, and you got Argentina, Croatia, and Japan, didn't you, in the group?
Yeah.
And like just picking out some of the players that you play against, like Batistuta and Davor Suker and even Nakata, and for Japan, who was massive around
Varane. You had Varane. You had who's the Atletico Madrid manager now?
Simeone. No.
Yeah, Simeone. I mean, it was just littered. It was littered with them. Ortega. I mean, the Croatia team who we played with. I mean, you don't know whether to mark them or get their autograph. It was like that. But if I'm being honest with you, the Argentina game wasn't as awe-inspiring, even though we lost 5-0. It wasn't as awe-affected as the other games were, because we were used to playing against those in the South American area. We played against Brazil twice that year, and we'd lost 1-0 in the second game and drew 0-0 in the first. So we were really achieving some really good things with that team. And in the World Cup, we truly expected a lot more than we delivered. in that World Cup, even though it was against, I mean, Croatia, there was no disgrace. It was the group of life for them, but the group of death for us. And we managed to win one game, which a lot of teams go to the World Cup and not manage to do. We beat Japan, and we had a great time.
Did you come back with any mementos in terms of either swapped shirts or stealing towels from the hotel or something?
Listen, there's so many mementos. It was silly. I mean, even little things that you collect from just your time there, souvenirs. I swapped shirts with a couple of players. In fact, I would have to go and look at them because I can't even remember who I swapped shirts with. But I was the type of player to save my own shirt because I had so many family members who wanted one of my shirts, and they were like, you need to give me one of your shirts, man. And I was thinking, okay, no problem. There's loads of people. I've played 41 times, but so many people wanted a top. You know, I've probably got about 2 left. So it was difficult. But I was a fan of keeping my own jerseys and not swapping them too many times because they're mementos of who you represented.
Yeah, and it was funny round then because it was probably about 5 years before that Cool Runnings was out. So I mean, it almost felt like France '98 was kind of like the sequel to Cool Runnings in some way, in terms of you were like the underdog story in that World Cup.
And there's definite what could I say? There's definite comparisons to be drawn because people used to stop us in the airport and ask us if we were actually what we do, and we said, oh, we're the football team, and people would say, oh, you're the Jamaican bobsled team? Like, no, we're the football team. And they'd say, which one of you guys is Sam? And we're thinking, listen, we know that we got the same colours on, but we're not the bobsled team. We're actually the football team. But it's difficult to look past Jamaica as other than athletics and music, but there is a decent football team there. So we did represent, and we were highest mover in FIFA at that point. And we did a good job in the World Cup as well. So it was really good.
Yeah, and you got a good 41 caps, something like that. So you did.
Yeah.
You played a lot.
41 caps. Yeah, 15 goals. So it was a good return for the games that I played in. Yeah. So that's probably a goal every 3 games, something like that, just over a goal every 3 games. So it was good, and I scored some pretty important goals. I scored the goal that against El Salvador away from home. I'd scored a few, and I'd scored a lot of goals for Jamaica in the Gold Cup as well, and finished in team of the tournament, playing up front with Romario and Edmundo. And it was such a, you're rubbing shoulders. You're on the shoulders of giants there. So I thought that it was a good international career for me. 41 games. It could have been more, but I'll take that 41.
Yeah, totally. And then I wanted to mention, before we go on to Chesterfield, which is obviously what we're here to talk about, was your time at Rushden and Diamonds, because people that are maybe too young to remember that time probably have not even heard of Rushden and Diamonds, because now, unfortunately, they're back down in the non-league again after kind of everything that happened with them. But at that time, they had a real rise, didn't they, through the leagues? And you spend, 2 or 3 years there, I think?
I think I spent about 3 years there, left in 2004, I think. And it was really, really successful time. I mean, the Dr. Martins guy, Max, he'd kill me if I forgot his name as well. But let's just say Max. He was the Dr. Martins owner, and he'd really ploughed some money into the football club. And it was such a great atmosphere around the club that you were encouraged to win and encouraged to be the top of your game. Max Griggs, you were the top of your game, and he made sure that you were the top of your game. Everything that you wanted for, you received it at the football club. You wanted for nothing, but in return, we gave him performances and we gave him results. In my first season, we got to the playoffs. In my second season, we won the league, and in my third season, I ended up leaving to go to Tranmere. But we were, at that point, we were 8th in the league. And for a club that 6,000 was the maximum amount of support in an area like Irthlingborough or Wellingborough, Northamptonshire, really punched above their weight. And every year in their 10-year history, they'd won something or got to the final of something. So it was really successful. And it was just a shame that it had to go, because the history that Rushden and Diamonds had, it was a whirlwind history, but it was good. And they've reformed again, but it's just not the same.
It's the first goal since mid-November for Martin Devaney, who started the previous match on the bench. Here's Hall. Can he replicate the goal? Oh, it's a better one. It's truly magnificent from Paul Hall. There haven't been many years at the Millennium Stadium, but I doubt there's been many better goals than that.
Well, we saw in the playoffs last week, they do have the ability to hit back straight away. Nice little ball in by Mustafa, and then Hall really just opened up for him. Credit, he went through the tightest of spaces, but with his power and his pace.
Yeah, and there's quite a lot of clubs. It's funny now in the league, because it seems like we're in a time where a lot of clubs are going into the league, and a lot of kind of old big clubs are kind of dropping out the league, Chesterfield included, but we'll be back pretty soon.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, isn't it, that you're getting a bit of a swap at the moment in terms of the old established order and these kind of new clubs that have got a bit of kind of a local businessman or finance behind them, isn't it?
It is, and I mean, like you say, these clubs that are dropping out with big names, they're sleeping, and it's only a matter of time before they get together, because they've got the infrastructure to come back up, because they've got the expectancy of we playing against certain teams, we're supposed to beat them just based on name alone. I mean, that can be used in a match. That can be used because a lot of these teams are playing their cup finals when they're playing against your Chesterfields, and the big teams that are in that division at the moment. And it's important that those clubs wake back up. And when they do wake back up, because they're very attractive to go and manage and to go and play for. And when they do, it's then a lease of life for the area. And for the, Chesterfield, Chesterfield itself is part of the area's social fabric, isn't it? And so I really do believe if they can come back very, very strong, because they've got the infrastructure to do it.
Yeah, and I remember when we first went down to the non-league, I think it was a Tranmere fan, because they'd just gone back up into the league again.
Yeah.
Kind of saying that it might be quite amusing for the first half of the season, because you'll think, oh, we're going to, Dover or somewhere like that, and you, like you say, you expect to turn them over kind of 7-0 or something, and it'll all be a bit of a laugh.
Yeah.
And it's only really at Christmas time, when you've been beaten by a lot of these teams and they're actually kind of better than you, that you realise it's a long, hard slog to get back into the league, isn't it?
It is, and like I say, Chesterfield's got a fan base. They really have got a fan base. And the one thing that history does teach you is, you shouldn't expect it, but what you should do is understand that the giants that have come before you, that have worn that T-shirt and represented that badge before, and that should spur you on in games when times get difficult, because like I say, you put no disrespect to Dover, but if Chesterfield are beating Dover and I'm playing, I'm expecting to beat them, regardless of whenever we play them, just based on history alone. And that drives you forward. That's why everybody wants to play for your Manchester Uniteds, your established teams, because you are part of that history and representing that history. So sometimes I feel that the picture needs to be painted in that way. Alan Ball said to the team once, they don't go to war from Liverpool, they do from Portsmouth. And that is, he sent his players out with a team talk. That was his team talk. So there is a certain connection that you need to make with history and with the size of a football club and with what that club's been in the past, that can drive your future. Yeah.
And then yeah, like you said, you had a season at Tranmere, didn't you, before coming to Chesterfield? And then you signed for us, in 2005 under Roy McFarland. So I'm just wondering how it all came about, signing for Chesterfield.
Okay, so I'd had a pretty good season at Tranmere that year, and all I wanted with Tranmere was to stay an extra year, because I thought I deserved a couple of years on my contract. I was coming to the end of my career, and I thought I deserved it. I was really performing well. I think I was the second highest top goal scorer at that point from wide area. So I thought I'd done a good job. They didn't want to do that. And I thought, well, I've done a good job. And then Chesterfield get on the phone. Roy McFarlane says, hello, son. And then it was, do you want to come and play for me? And at that point, I was happy at Tranmere. I was really happy because we'd done really well. We just got to the playoffs, and we should have got to Wembley at least and won, because we were the form team. We'd come third in that league at that point. And then Roy just said, come down here. We'll give you 2 years if you want security. So I said, okay, no problems. Just wanted to see out my career really. So I went down there, and then I'm in a changing room then again with your Wayne Allisons, your Shane Nicholsons, your Aaron Downses, and all these guys that are coming through. Just great changing rooms. I've gone from a great changing room at Tranmere to a great changing room at Chesterfield, from a great changing room at Rushden and Diamonds. So it was just being part of that great changing room, which is really, really important.
Yeah, because the facilities at Chesterfield obviously weren't that great around then. The training pitch, guessing you were at Warminster Road there, was a bit
yeah, I mean, you have to report to the ground, then drive 20 miles to Warminster, and then 20 miles back in the freezing cold. But you know what? Like I said, it was about a changing room. Like I said, that was the oldest ground. It's where they filmed the Clough movie, wasn't it?
Yeah, damn Jamaica.
And it was people just never used to want to come there and play. And even when you looked at Chesterfield play at that point, we had a high press that we used to make teams feel uncomfortable. And it was that we concentrated on, because we knew that we weren't the fancy team with all the facilities, but you don't need to do that. All you need is 11 men who are focused and really pregnant about what they're doing. And we really tried to get after people. And it was quite a good season, that one.
Yeah, and it was a really interesting time then, because Roy McFarlane had this just kind of a quite a traditional 4-4-2 with your pretty strong fullbacks and defence, and then you'd have probably you and I think it was Kevin Hurst probably on the other
that's
wing.
right, yeah. That's right.
Obviously the Niven Allett combo in midfield, having your tackler and your passer, and then like you mentioned, like Chief up front, and Caleb Folan was around then as well. What was your favourite formation to play in? Did you like those kind of?
Yeah, I liked it. I liked it because, I mean, Roy allowed me the freedom to be able to play football. So I wasn't just stuck out on the wing waiting for the ball to come to me, even though that's where I used to pop up. I was able to get in the middle of the park and cause problems and create and assist others. And again, we had some good football players. It was a real working class town, and we represented that working class by the amount of work that we put in our performances. So it was key that, you like you say, you had the Allett and the Nivens. I mean, those two were tireless. And I mean, they both. I mean, Niven, I saw him score one of the best goals in the cup run that anybody at Saltergate has ever seen. But he could pass the ball as well, and Allett could dig. So it was a nice complement with each other. You had the two guys up front who were nightmares for the back four, and you had, like you say, Kevin Hurst was different to me. He'd provide a lot more. I'd probably try and finish things off a lot more, but I'd like to provide as well. And we all complemented each other, and that was key. So 4-4-2, I really do believe that it's not formations that win you games. It's the players in the formations that win you the games, and how they understand it and how they can go forward and implement what the manager wants. Because like I said, I can't even remember who was captain, because we had 11 captains on the pitch and we were all going for each other, and that's key. That's really, really key.
Yeah, and I wondered, was that always your position, kind of on the wing? I'm assuming you've probably played striker a bit over your time as well, have you?
Well, yeah, for Jamaica, I play up front. I played up front. It's a long time ago now. We're talking, 23 years ago. But for Jamaica, I played up front. I mean, because I was so versatile, I could play up front, on the wing, in the 10. Because, there's a point of trying to, understanding the game as you get older. On the wing, you do a lot, in the 10 and the forward positions, you probably do a lot less running than you do on the wing. So, but you have to understand the game, how the game goes, which spaces open up. and how you can exploit those spaces for yourself and others. So it's really important that I understood the game, and playing up front with Jamaica enabled me to be able to come and play up front or understand the game and change the game from the wing. That's why Roy McFarlane used to put us in a 4-4-2, but I'd often change that into a 4-3-3. Just because the space was inside the pitch and I'd play inside the pitch.
Yeah, and there was some good little. I was watching the 5-1 against Millwall yesterday.
Yeah.
And like your first goal in that match, you'd make that run inside, and I think you have a 1-2 with Folan, I think.
Yeah.
Finish it off.
And that's what Roy. Sorry to cut you.
No.
But, and that's what Roy kind of instilled in us. You know, go and play, go and make those combinations in the attacking areas. I do believe that if Roy was in charge a little bit longer and kept the kind of the nucleus of the team, it could have built on to be something else, quite successful. But it was quite a new team. But like I said, you were allowed to come inside the pitch, allowed to formation, as long as you knew what you were doing defensively. But then if I ran out of position, somebody would pick up for me defensively anyway. So it was always an understanding from the back line and the midfield players, and they just allowed us to run forward and run free, really. But we did pay our bill. We scored quite a few goals, you know.
Thrown into Hall. Hall turns, loses Moraes, given inside. That's a good ball. Hall, and he scores! Great interplay between Paul Hall and Caleb Folan there.
Yeah, and I always think with like with wide players, either fullbacks or wingers, you're closest to the crowd, aren't you? Which can be which can be a good thing if you're having a good game, and can be a bad thing if you're not.
100%.
Is that? Do you think that the players that play in the middle, your centre midfielders and stuff, do you think they get off a bit lightly sometimes, not being down the touchline?
Well, listen, they say it's the hardest thing in the world is to play in the middle. That's what they say, because it's 360. And when you're playing with your back to the line, you see the whole game. So a goalkeeper can see the whole pitch. A fullback and a wide man can see the whole pitch, but a centre forward can only see three corner flags at one. Sorry, a centre midfield player can only see three corner flags at one time, and he has to turn his head. So playing with the crowd behind you, it can be, you feel them, but they can drive you on as well. I mean, the Chesterfield lot used to drive me on, take me past fullbacks, like just from the roar they used to get when the ball used to get pinged out to me. They used to just literally drive you past these guys, and you used to want to please them. So when you feel like you've got them behind you and they're like you, it's only a matter of, it's rising to the occasion. Some people obviously can't, but for me, it was a good thing.
Yeah, and like you scored on your home debut, I think it was against Brentford, on your home debut, and then you went on to be top goal scorer that first season with us, didn't you? I think you got about 15, something like that.
Yeah.
Was that? I mean, that must have been nice. Did you take the mickey out of the other strikers a bit? get top dog.
Yeah, I used to say to them, well, if you're not going to do your job, I'm going to have to do your job. But listen, I saw it as a duty to score goals from midfield, because if you concentrate on your strikers scoring so many goals all the time, then, I used to like to provide, but I see myself as scoring. If I can add to the goal tally, then it helps to the overall goal tally that the team needs to get to. And sometimes you become a game winner. Sometimes you become just, assisting in a goal. But all the time you need to stop goals. So you're either scoring, assisting, or stopping goals in a match. And for me, scoring goals was really important. I scored goals at Tranmere, at Rushden, at Portsmouth. The only place where I didn't really score any goals was Torquay. And I was really learning my trade at that point. And then I was just concentrating on providing. But then the feeling that you get, at Saltergate when you score a goal. And I mean, the fans used to make lots of noise when you score, and you could feel them driving you on. And so once you've scored one goal, you want to carry on and score another one because it's a good feeling. So you just want to repeat that. And if you can find yourself into that area where you can score tap-ins, you can score goals from distance, but keep putting yourself in that area, then law of averages means that you can score, or you can put yourself in a position to get chances.
Did you have any like tricks of the trade in terms of getting in the box, coming unnoticed, or anything like that? Did you have a tactic in terms of how to get in that space to score?
Pin the far post, always. Just pin the far post and play quickly and decisively in the final third. I mean, I tell this to my players now: be decisive. In that final third, just be decisive. Like, I don't mind. Make the keeper work and be decisive. So whatever that is, I mean, if you saw I think it might have been the first goal yesterday in the Millwall game.
Yeah.
Like you say, I'm decisive in that action. What I'm doing, I know that I'm giving it to Caleb. Caleb's decisive in flicking it. He might have given it away, but we're playing decisively in that area. And we're playing like we want to break them down. And then the defenders have got to destroy that. And it's easier to destroy than it is to invent. But the ball falls to me because I gamble, and then I'm decisive in the finish. So it's always a point of making sure that you're decisive in the final third. That's a trick of the trade. And then pin the far post. When Kevin Hurst is crossing it, I'm making sure that if Chief puts his head on it and the keeper doesn't hold it, then I'm making sure that I'm trying to get a tap in and gambling, really.
Yeah. He was so good at heading balls, wasn't he? I mean, it sounds a bit obvious, Wayne Al's so good at heading balls, but he was one of those, with target men sometimes, they can head a ball but not necessarily know where they're heading it, whereas he really knew where he was heading it. He always seemed to find someone or find the space, didn't he?
I always used to say, listen, Chief, we need to turn you upside down, mate. I'll keep the ball on the floor and turn you upside down if you're that good with your head. But he was that good. He was such a good hold-up player, very basic in what he did, and you could set your watch by him. You just knew that he was going to set the ball back. I could time my runs based off him setting the ball back, and then Derek Niven or Mark Hallett or Phil Picking, they would play a third man run, and I just knew that I could, or Chief would just flick it on, or buy you a foul. He was so wise in his craft that it was obvious when he'd scored a lot of goals in his career and played a lot of games, and you could see why he managed to stick around for so long.
Yeah, and you were pretty good on your left foot as well, weren't you? Like as playing on the right, you were good on your left foot. I think that second goal in the Millwall game was you kind of cut inside and curled it in. And I was looking back at your Rushden and Diamond goals as well, and there was quite a few there where you were kind of cutting back on your left. Was that practice?
It's practice, but it's also the moment. It's like I say, it's being decisive. I mean, there's probably 1,000 that you haven't seen. I mean, YouTube is full, and Twitter and all those platforms are full of things where people are successful. But there's a lot of left-footed shots where, I probably wounded somebody in the stands behind the goal or hit the corner flag. So, I mean, I was good on my left foot, but it was, like I said, moments of decisiveness that felt right at the time, and it just flew off the boot, and you knew it was in the goal as you were shaping up to score. So
and I should mention as well, you had some good dance moves on you as well, didn't you, when you scored?
It was discotheque on the pitch. So we used to say, man, listen, if you can't play, come off the dance floor. And so we just used to, just try and dance every time. It was a happy feeling, and it was just a little bit of fun with the fans, really, to just let them see, because they're happy. And when you score a goal, it's such a great feeling for everybody in the stadium that you just feel like dancing. And I always just dance after some of my celebrations, unless I was too tired to. So as I got older, I got really tired. But it was fun. Fun scoring a goal, and like you say, I scored quite a few in my career, and it was fantastic.
Hurst gets a chance here. Bumped by Phillips, but carries on his run. He's got Hall outside him. Hall with a bit of space. He's going to have a shot. He's going to have a shot. And he scores the fourth goal for Chesterfield. That's Hall's second goal. And a bit of dance there.
Yeah, and I think you actually got your 100th career league goal when you were playing for us against Gillingham, someone like that. Yeah, and you played nearly all the games, didn't you, the first season with us? I think you played like 44, and I think you were a sub one game and missed out on another. But
yeah, and I used to pride myself on playing 46 games a season. So when I didn't play, I was very, very disappointed, and that was including the cup matches. So there'd be more than 46 games. But as a seasoned professional, I mean, I played all the season. In the championship season with Rushden, I played 46 games. In the championship in the playoff season with Tranmere, I played 46 games. And then coming into Chesterfield, I was a player that had played 46 games. And I remember saying that to Roy, where I'll play 46 games for you. And I think that's what he liked, because I was always going to be there, win, lose or draw, and never be the one who's, slight injury. I'm playing with half an injury sometimes, but I'm going to make sure that I'm available to try and win these games and be there for any team that I play for.
Yeah, and did that change because you were obviously playing for a good 2 decades or something? And obviously, when you started your career, it was probably more of a you had your first 11, that was it, and then it turned into probably a bit more of a squad game like it is now. How did that change over the years?
Like I say, I mean, it's probably accepted by the players now that it's a squad game, But for me, even now, I mean, players that used to you'd pride yourself on playing 46 games. So when you're having to miss out because of rotation, right? I'd be trying to outperform everybody, because I wouldn't be one of the ones who I wanted the manager to rotate. So I'd always be trying to play well, so that I was in a position to be, or scoring a goal or setting one up, or being in a position to influence the side so much that you were seen as being the first name on the team sheet. That was key. So it was never a squad game or outlook for myself. I always wanted to play. Nowadays, I would still want to play. And I feel sometimes some players will play 2 games in a week and then feel that they're tired. But me, I could play Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday. No, I'm playing the next week as well. You've got to get up, and but it takes time to do that. And nowadays there's more pros in the building, so there's more choice for the manager.
Yeah. And then we should mention it really, but the Carling Cup run, we've had Alan O'Hare on, and we've had Aaron Downs on podcast already talking about how amazing it was. But it was just great, wasn't it? Because it wasn't a one game wonder against one team. It kind of carried on match after match. It was great fun, wasn't it?
It was, and I mean, like I said, we had a great changing room. That was what I put that down to. A great changing room. We used to come in, we used to really take the mickey out of each other in there. It was such a place. I mean, the place it needed a lick of paint, to say the least.
Yeah.
But we come in the changing rooms and everybody had their little positions, and we'd all go at each other. But when we went out on the pitch, it was about making sure that we went and achieved. And we played against some really good teams who we had no right to beat. Like I said to you earlier, it's, if it was anything to do with history, those players, they would have beaten us hands down, all the teams. But we didn't. We had our own history to kind of live up to, because of the previous guys who had got to the semi-finals before. So we were like, let's put it on these guys. If they're going to beat us, then let them prove to us that they're better than us. Don't give it to them. Let them take it. And we ended up taking it off them.
Yeah, and I imagine as well the changing rooms not being in, I mean, especially the away changing room, which is even worse than the home one. I imagine that didn't, as a player that played at a slightly higher level than Chesterfield, I imagine going to dressing rooms like that is, I don't know, it must be a bit of a shock to some of the higher earning players.
It is, but you know what? The size of the pitch is the same, and you do have to go out. So it's about approach, and it's about attitude, and it's about desire, and the biggest marginal gain anybody can ever have in football is in the head. It's a sight box, and if you can sort that out, decision making, your commitment, your desire, your control, if you can sort all those things out, then you can have a good career. But like I said, the changing rooms. I mean, Torquay United, their away dressing room is pink. Yeah, it's so. But the pitch is still green. The lines are still white. The sides of the goals are the same. There's an 18-yard box, and with all of that, you've still got to go out, no matter what the surroundings are like. You've still got to go out, and you've still got to go and get a result. And we, especially in the cup runs, we did that.
Yeah, and it was. Did you have a favourite match from that cup run? Because there was like late goals in every match, so they all had their all had the drama.
I think the Man City one, because I was born in Manchester, so that Man City game was good. But we had West Ham, we had Charlton,
yeah, and then Wolves as well earlier on.
Yeah, and I think it was good, and I think that's when Caleb Folan started to really come alive, and you saw the growth of a young man, and we were really proud of him. And we just, he was the kind of talisman at the time when it was chief. And he just kind of took over, and he just really started opening his legs and becoming that player who we thought that he would be. Because I was at Rushden with him as well. And, he'd come through. And then, we became that team who nobody wanted to play in the cup run.
And yeah, I wanted to talk to you about your role in the dressing room, because it was Aaron Downs that said to us that if we had a defeat, that you were the guy that would know what to say. You'd say the right thing, whether it was making a bit of a joke, not kind of underplaying the situation, but kind of relaxing people a bit. So what was your role in the dressing room?
Well, you're an experienced player at that point. I'd been on cup runs before, and I'd been in league. I'd won a league a few seasons before, and I'd gone to a playoffs before. And a lot of these matches that you play, you're playing over the course of 46 games. You're starting a 50-game run, 52-game run, of which you're going to lose some games. And it's about not how you fall, it's about how much you bounce when you get back up. And what attitude have you got when you get back up? And that was important, because we had some good senior players in that changing room at the time. But we had some young players as well. Adam Smiths, Jamie Jackson, Alex Bailey was a good player for us at that point. And it was just making sure that you just kept, it's about people, changing rooms football is just about people. And if you can affect people in the right way, they can run through brick walls for you and with you. And if you can manage to say the right things to them, just genuinely, look, we're quite lucky people, we're in a lucky job. Let's go. Let's leave, don't leave your legs in this changing room. Let's make sure that we don't let those fans down. We're lucky boys. Different things that would be said that players would take notice of to make them feel better about losing or about drawing when we should have won. But sometimes when we draw and we felt that we should have won, I'd just turn around and say something like, guys, that's a point in the right direction. Stop dwelling on it. We can't fix it now. Let's go on to the next game. Let's make sure that we take the have a balanced view. And I think those type of players, those guys appreciated that. But they all were like that. We were all, like I said, Roy had lots of captains in there, and he picked well in terms of a squad.
Yeah, and do you, because you joined us when you were about 33, something like that, do you start to become like a link to the manager? Or do you still very much you're obviously still part of the playing team, but you must start to become a little link to the manager in terms of looking after those younger pros and things like that.
Yeah, especially. And I've always tried to do that. When I first went to Portsmouth, the older players who looked after me, Alan McLaughlin, Paul Walsh, they just took me under their wing and started showing me the right things to do. And they didn't need to do that. So that stayed with me. And any young player that you'll probably see that I've played with will always say that I always tried to take them under my wing. Caleb Folan, Alex Bailey, Adam Smith, Jamie, always tried to lead them, and because they were great players. These are good footballers, and just trying to take them under your wing and make sure that they're doing some good with their careers. And I mean, of those guys, I mean, Alex Bailey was probably he was really good, and you know, you want to see him go on to become that player that he had the potential to be. But yeah, you wanted to just look after these guys and make sure that you leave a legacy. And if you do leave a legacy, it's a positive legacy, so that they can say, "Wow, okay," and call your name, which was important.
And was that when you started thinking maybe about what you might be able to do after football in terms of coaching and things like that?
Yeah. I've always wanted to do coaching, and at that point, I was doing my B license, A license. So I wanted to do it. And like you say, you're a link to the manager. The manager doesn't want to be in the change rooms all the time. You police your own space. Make sure that the young lads are there on time. Make sure that the young lads are doing what we want them to do. And all these little things that you learn as a player over the space of 20 years, you can take into your management style. So Roy McFarlane had a management style. I always steal little bits from him. I steal little bits from Alan Ball, Terry Finnick, Ivan Golak. The list is endless. You know, lots of Gordon Strachan. You know, lots of different managers that I've had in the past. That it's really, really important that you take that and and at the end of your career, if you want to become a coach, then these guys have literally done the job and shown you've got to take the best of what they've got and try and marry it into your own style. Yeah.
And what was Roy Mack like as a boss in terms of his personality and stuff?
Funny, you know, he was a funny guy because he'd always talk about his times at Derby, and you were just in awe of, you know, he's had a fantastic career, and some of the little things. I always find that, you know, Brian Small, all these guys. Brian Little, Brian Small, same thing but different name. He always used to say little snippets of things that used to stay with you throughout your career. And you know, if you want to come off your shape, go and play, go and lead, go and invent a goal. And you always say little things like that, and you feel the freedom to go and play. And you never used to want to let him down. That's why I think at Chesterfield I became a little bit of a perfectionist, because you just didn't want to let him down, because of the faith that he showed in me to bring me in the first place, and the fact that he'd allowed you to go and play 4-4-2, but you know, change your shape if you want, and he wouldn't shout at me for doing it, and it would result in something good for the attack, for the football club. And I really enjoyed the time underneath him there.
Yeah. And who were the other players? Obviously, you mentioned Downsy that you still close to. Were there other players around that time that you kind of kept?
Shane Nicholson, Caleb Folan, Alex Bailey, Mark Allett, Derek Niven, Wayne Allison. You know, lots of different players at the football club who were just really good people. And it was such a nice changing room to be in. But we demanded from each other as well, which is key. I mean, we, you know, even in the season after where we didn't do so well, we were still demanding off each other. You know, the dynamic had changed a little bit, but we'd still was demanding from each other.
Yeah, and in terms of a dressing room, like I've spoken to a few other players about this, that some dressing rooms seem like they might be a bit more raucous, a bit more of a bantery squad, and some others might be a bit quieter in terms of personalities. I wondered what the characteristics were around that time. Well,
put it this way, if you went in there with any dodgy clothes or anything like that, you were getting told about it. And we weren't afraid to get at each other, you know, and really get at each other if it wasn't going right. And sometimes Roy wouldn't need to come in and do a team talk, because we're doing it for each other, we're doing it for ourselves, which is really, really important. I've seen that disappear out the game, if I'm being honest, one of the changes. But Roy he'd leave us to it sometimes, or he'd come in and say, right, you need to be like this, Hawley, you need to stay wide a little bit more, or because sometimes you can I could get really carried away with it and really try and be free. And sometimes, you need the structure and you need discipline. So he'd only come in and say something if he really felt that it needed to be said. But he had a squad at one point that was he could have remote controlled them from up in the stands.
Yeah, and like I remember as a fan, you could kind of name the starting 11 before it was even announced. It was like that solid. And it's.
But you know what? That's the point. I mean, because when you can name a team, you don't need to rotate the team, because that's the team that you feel most comfortable with. I think when you start chopping and changing the squad and the team, what then happens from there is you get performances, because people don't get the time to settle in, to suck the time, or they don't feel part of the team. But if you've got like a group of players who you know that's going to play week in, week out, you at least know what you're getting from that squad.
Who were the really tough people in training? Because I've spoken to a few players that were like, I had scraps with him all the time in training, and there must have been some tackles flying from certain people.
I tell you, the one person, right, you wouldn't believe, well, you probably would, but you wouldn't believe, because he's such a quiet guy, was Derek Niven. He was a tackler. He would run through a brick wall, and he was our Kante. He would just go and fetch the ball and give it to somebody. And, he was such a nice guy with it. Ruben Hazel, wasn't afraid to put a tackle in. Aaron Downs wasn't afraid to put a tackle in. Janas Kovac, all these guys were big guys. And the training sessions would really be full throttle. And we'd be right on it, because we knew that come Saturday, again, teams that are coming to play against you are expecting to beat you, because you are Chesterfield and they are who they are. But we were like, it's not going to be like that. So we had to make do with what we had,
Yeah, and then you played, even in your second season with us. I think you played about 40 games in that second season. And then obviously I think we got relegated that season, and Roy McFarlane left. Was there ever a chance to stay on, or was it
no,
like a change in the?
Yeah, there was not a chance to stay on. I mean, Lee Richardson had come in, took the reins at that point. I think Alan Neil had come around at that point as well. I'm sure he had. And I think Chief might have been a coach at that point, but there was kind of like a change of the guard. It was said to me, look, we'll have a look at who we want to have a look at. You have a look at who you might have a look at, and we'll come. But I just knew that he just didn't want to say to me, we're not giving you another contract. And I actually wanted to sign another contract with Chesterfield, because I did like the club. And but I'd gone and I'd signed for Walsall at that point, in League One. And it was crazy, really, because I'd signed for Walsall in League One, but Chesterfield had got relegated, and I actually wanted to stay with Chesterfield, but there was no chance to. So I'd moved on, and I still keep in contact with lots of the guys, and still remember Ches Vegas as being a great place to be.
And throughout your career, obviously you've played at a fair few clubs, I think it's fair to say. Did you always have a place that you called home, and then you kind of travelled to and from, or did you move around the country as it went?
Oh, no. In terms of that, I've lived in just outside Birmingham. And so there was myself, Ruben Hazel, Shane Nicholson, and a couple of others who would all meet, because we'd all come up from up and down the country. But that was ever since I played for Coventry, just outside Birmingham was my home until I finished my career.
It's interesting as well, you talked about the whole car school thing, because I've always wondered about this, in that, how do you work it? Do you share it? Because there's certain players that will live kind of halfway. So when it's their turn, do they have to come and pick you up and then?
No way. What you'd do is you'd get to a point where you'd all meet, so central to everybody. But the players who were living in, I suppose, say Shane Nicholson was living in Derby at that point, we would meet at junction 28. So we'd only have to go up 3 or 4 junctions, but that was okay because that extra 15, 20 miles each day would save you a lot of petrol and mileage on your car. So if you were coming from Birmingham, I'd probably meet Ruben in Birmingham and then we'd go. But I would always have the longest to drive. So I'd meet Ruben, stop at his house, leave my car at his house and then drive up. And then we'd all decide on whose turn it was. But the biggest problem was the rotor on whose turn it was once we got to junction 28.
Is there anyone at really horrible times of the year in terms of weather and ice as well? I was just like, no, it's not my time on the rotor at the moment.
Oh, listen, there was all types of weathers. It was always cold because you're going up north. And, you'd always have somebody that would fall asleep in the car. And Ruben Hazel would be able to argue with anybody. If he was on his own in the car, he'd find an argument. But it was a great set of people, great car school.
I imagine you're all having a McDonald's at motorway services after you way back.
Well, no, it wasn't like that because we'd always eat at the club, which was there's like a sandwich place down at the bottom of the road.
Linda's.
And then Linda's, right. Okay, so we'd go there and then we'd end up just getting on the road, and then we was never anywhere where we could tempt ourselves with food or drink. We'd just get on the road and go.
That's good because these are always things as football fans that you always wonder about. That's good to clear that up.
Mainly from the left side of the park, but Larkin free for Chesterfield. He's got Hall to his left, and it's 4-1. Chesterfield walk through the City defence, and a huge mountain to climb now for the home side.
Well, it's Paul Hall's hat-trick as well. It was really good play by his strike partner Larkin, who just broke clear and challenged Joseph, tried to get a foot in but really just couldn't get anywhere near it, and Hall in the end left with the simplest of tap-ins. Unselfish play by Larkin, and really Chesterfield looking good on the counter-attack in the second half have grabbed the goal really to completely take the game away altogether from City, you think?
Yeah, so then you had a big long playing career and then you're obviously now into coaching. But I also want to mention you did the sports journalism course as well, which quite a lot of people do nowadays. Has that sports journalism course really come in handy in terms of coaching as well, in terms of how to...
Well, in terms of what I want to do in my life, that's become a football manager. It's helped me to be able to understand what angle the media come on and how to prepare for questions that the media give you. And how the media works. So it was a really good course because it gets you skilled in something after the game. And I started my career at Chesterfield, my journalism career. And so I've got a degree in that. So it has come in handy. I did write some columns for Birmingham newspapers, and I did have a few spots on the radio stations. And so it's really come in handy because it's given you something else, because after 20 years as a footballer, you're pretty unemployable. Nobody wants a good ex-footballer, because that's no qualification at all. For coaching, yes, but for anything else, you become pretty skill absent. So you've got to go and retrain yourself again, and that's why I retrained myself.
Yeah, was it quite tough around that time? Did you manage to hop into stuff straight away? Because I know you did a bit like Tamworth, didn't you, and Mansfield, which we shouldn't mention.
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, it was really tough because I became a school teacher. Well, I became a college tutor, and which really helped my coaching because teaching is what you're doing, and it helped me understand how people learn and how people don't learn and different things like that. So it gave me skills to help me in my coaching, and I use them today. So yeah, it was a real difficult time because coming out of football, I mean, I suppose I can only liken it to being in prison for 20 years. You come out and then you've got no skills. People don't want to employ you because of one reason or another. You've got to then go and retrain, and somebody's got to really take a chance on you. And when I was going into Tamworth, I was literally going in as a voluntary coach. And at Mansfield, I ended up getting a job and finishing my teaching career, but that put me on the coaching ladder. So it's very difficult to get into coaching. But yeah, I mean, it's what I do today, and it's the greatest thing apart from playing.
Yeah. So tell us where you are now. So you're at QPR now. What's your role there?
So I'm the head coach of the under-23s. So I give the players basically to the first team. I've played my role in helping Ibire Eze get to Crystal Palace, who's a really good talent. Ilias Chair. I mean, we've got well in excess of 25 players who've done in the last 5 years, who have gone on to have careers. Sold players to West Brom, Everton, as I said, Crystal Palace, Swansea, who have come out of the programme. So it's really, really good that I can turn my hand to something, and I actually enjoy it just as much as my playing career.
It's a really highly responsible, tough role as well, isn't it? Because especially when we're in a period where kind of depression amongst like younger footballers that might be let go and stuff is quite high profile at the moment. You've got a much responsibility, haven't you, to the youngsters that are let go than you have to the ones that go on and have great careers. So that's hard for you being the mentor and kind of the father figure in some ways of a group of young men.
And that's what you have to do. You have to get a connection. Football's all about connections, and it's a people science. So you can't think that, you know, you're literally dashing people's hopes when you're releasing people, and you're making people's dreams when you're signing people. So it is a responsibility, and I think the under-23s job is the most difficult job in the whole club, because you're dealing with so many people's emotions. You're dealing with players who the first team give you who they don't want. You're dealing with players who come up from the under-18s and the 23s who think that they should be in the first team. Then you're dealing with a lot of these emotions in one cooking pot, and you have to manage them. It's helped me massively, and it will help me in my first team career to be able to deal with players and deal with situations of young people. But, you know, a 23s player, it's the hardest step you're going to make. It's probably the smallest step, but the most difficult step you're ever going to make. So you're creating players for the future, but you've also got to set an environment where no matter how upset they are, they've still got to come in and do the work, and still got to come in and be part of a team and want to individually better themselves and get better.
Do clubs give you online learning and things like that in terms of how to broach the subject of releasing youngsters, or, you know, kind of looking at young people?
You cover these on your A licenses. I mean, I'm a pro licensed coach now, so you cover it on these things. But, you know, there's no hard fast rule on how to deal with these things. I think it's respect. I think it's a lot of it is signposting. You have to signpost a lot of players when you think that they're not going to make it. You have to almost prepare them so that it doesn't become as a shock. They can actually see that it's coming. But you've also got to throw everything at it so that they know that you've tried everything. So, for example, if a player or a person in life knows that you've got their best interests at heart, they're gonna try for you, because they know that you've been honest with them and that you've been transparent and open, and that's the most important thing. And I think if you're not open, transparent, and honest, that's when people can start falling into depression. Listen, they can start falling into depression anyway, even when they're open and honest.
Yeah.
But I feel that it can't come as a massive shock, because that then becomes trauma, and that's when people start reacting negatively.
Yeah,
and we help them as well. We help them when they leave the football club to try and find clubs that may not be as senior as ours, or maybe more senior than ours. You know, they might not fit into our thing, but then go and play in Arsenal and be really effective. So it's about finding futures for these players.
Yeah. Who's the next Paul Hall in the QPR academy?
Oof, let me see. I wouldn't wish that on anybody, to be fair. But no, we've got lots of players who it would be unfair to mention anybody and to to single out anyone, because they're like your children. Like you say, it's a father figure, and they're like your children. You know, you've got different qualities in all of them, and their strengths. They are top of their strength in all of what they do, from heading the ball to tackling to really being that little player who can get between lines. They've all got a chance, and if they apply themselves correctly, then they can have a kind of career that I had and better. You know, and even if they don't have the career that I've had, that's no disgrace, because I feel if I was to stop playing now, if I was to stop my involvement in football, I feel that I've had a decent career in football. So, and that was just because I had no right to be, but I've got my head down and worked really hard, listened to the older players, listened to my coaches, and done all right.
And then, yeah, you mentioned that you might like to go into management. It's quite it's not very stable employment all the time. Is there anything that you're probably have a bit more stability maybe as an under-23s as head there?
Yes, you do, but you know, you've got an itch that you need to scratch.
Yeah.
And you do need to scratch that itch and fulfill your ambitions. I don't think football is a stable, football is a stable occupation. If I was to be a footballer, the amount of times people said to me, you have to have a career an opposite career to fall back on, because one tackle could end it. And we all think it's not going to happen to me. But without me trying it, I'm never going to know. So I want to be able to be in football and walk away from football knowing that I've tried to become a manager and seen how good I am, seen how far off I am, and see if I can really test myself. I've tested myself in every age group now, from the young ones all the way up to the 23s. I've tested myself in the first team at Mansfield. We got to Wembley in the FA Trophy, I think it was. And so after that, I really do want to be, affecting things at first team level. And I really do believe that I've done the training and studied, and I'm a pro licensed coach now. So I really do believe that in my future, I hope to be a first team manager.
Do you think things are changing a bit in terms of management? Because obviously Chesterfield have gone for James Rowe now from Gloucester, and it was the first time in a while in which we've not had a manager that's kind of just felt like one of those managers that's on the merry-go-round of just getting another job, even though they've maybe not been that successful. Do you get the sense that things are changing, or is it still the same old way?
I feel that we're still guilty of. It's one of the only occupation or industries in the world where you can actually get sacked from one job and pop up a few weeks later in a job that's in a higher division with more pay, and for being on the merry-go-round. So I think football is part about getting on the merry-go-round than it is anything else. But yeah, I mean, I do believe that there's a new breed of coach and manager coming along. But again, it's about that. That is about the decision makers who give jobs out. I mean, they sometimes, if you want a new fresh approach, and you want to, you go and get a young manager, or go and get a new somebody with new open ideas, instead of hiring the guy that's been fired from 10 jobs, because he's experienced, but he's also experienced, he's experienced in being in the job, but he's probably experienced in losing jobs as well. So I really do believe that the decision makers and the people who give jobs out could have a little bit more of an open view about, and take their club into the game's changing, and so does our attitudes to employing people need to change. And if you can do that, then you never know what you're going to get. But you do know that the tried and tested, every club's in turmoil, and every manager, when he goes into a job for the first time, is inexperienced. It doesn't matter whether he's had 10 jobs before. In that particular job, he's going to be inexperienced with that group of players. So you can almost take a chance. If that person has proven that person can do the job, then why not? Just take a chance. And I think James Rowe at Chesterfield is showing that he's getting the team into the upper echelons in the division, and he was worth taking a chance over. But probably the guys at Chesterfield would probably have never even thought about hiring somebody like that a few years ago. And if he proves them right and gets them up and out of that division, then hopefully other people will take kind of stock of that and start doing it themselves.
Yeah, I think it certainly opened a lot of eyes of fans and things at Chesterfield. Someone completely unknown. Well, I hope we get to see you on the touchline at some point. If you're half as decent as a manager, then you were as a player, then you'll do all right, I imagine.
Well, yeah. Well, I've learned. I mean, I've learned how to coach. You know, I've sharpened my axe, I've sharpened my tools, and I've really learned how to coach. I've got some great mentors at QPR. You know, I've been working under some great managers as a player and as a coach. So now I've got some really good skills and learnings to draw on. And libraries of memories to draw on, so that I can adapt them and apply them to my everyday work. And it's work because we're very, very high up in the scores of producing young talent. So for first teams, so I'm one step away.
Yeah. And final question, I just wondered if there was I'm putting it on the spot a bit, but when you think back to your time at Chesterfield, is there a certain kind of match or event or just something about the club that you think about when you think about Chesterfield?
There's loads, really. I mean, like I say, I remember, it's only since I saw that Millwall game yesterday that I realised that when the fans are happy and it's a full ground, it can actually be a place that's rocking, and they're really fans. You know, they love exciting players. They love to support their club, and they've got such a good fan base that the fans really are part of why I enjoyed my time there. Because when you're, in the cup runs, and when I was leading scorer one season, and we were winning games, it was fantastic, and they made you feel really welcome and really at home. So the fans are key, and the people that work around the club as well. They all. I mean, was it Jeff? He was like, yeah. I mean, when I scored my hat trick away at Bristol City, he awarded me with this. I mean, I've still got it now. It's this placard that was such a lovely gesture, and it was a real pleasure coming into train and working at Chesterfield, and I'll always remember those times fondly at Chesterfield. And it's a club that at that point, when I was at Tranmere, I never thought that I'd play for another club like that, because the Tranmere fans were great as well. But I've gone from one good club to another good club, so it was really good.